The Jets came to Baltimore with Joe Namath in street clothes, and somehow the ghost of Super Bowl III still walked into the building before him. This is chapter 4644 of NFL history, December 19th, 1970. New York Jets at Baltimore Colts. The first thing to understand is that 1970 wasn't just another football season. It was the merger season. The AFL and the NFL were finally under the same roof. The old neighborhood got redrawn. The Colts and the Browns and the Steelers all moved into the AFC to balance the old AFL teams. So now Baltimore and the Jets aren't just linked by Super Bowl III trauma, they're division rivals. What a nasty little twist that is. 2 years earlier, the Colts were the mighty NFL machine that got embarrassed by Namath and the Jets in Miami. Baltimore had been favored, hyped, and treated like the grown-up in the room. Then the Jets beat them 16-7, and Namath's guarantee became one of the biggest I told you so moments in history. By December of 1970, the script had flipped. The Colts were back. Don Shula was going to Miami. Don McCafferty was the new head coach, and Baltimore came into this regular season finale at 10-2-1. They'd already clinched the AFC East with a rugged win in Buffalo, but they were still building towards January. They had Johnny Unitas, Earl Morrall, a violent defense, and enough firepower on the receiving corps to turn a normal Saturday into a problem. Yeah, Saturday. This game was played Saturday. The Jets came in at 4-9. They weren't dead as a franchise, but the season was cooked. The big wound came on October 18th, when the Colts beat them at Shea Stadium and Joe Namath broke his wrist after hitting his hand on Fred Miller's helmet. That game was the first Colts-Jets meeting since Super Bowl III. Namath threw for a mountain of yards and 6 interceptions. It's Testaverde-like. Then the season basically walked into a wall. So now it's Al Woodall's team. It sounds cruel, but Woodall wasn't a statue they dragged out there. He'd already led upset wins over the Rams and the Vikings. He could play some. He just wasn't Namath. Nobody was. Except no, not exactly. Baltimore had revenge already. The Colts got the 1970 meeting. This is more like a receipt game. A game where they're not talking about Miami anymore. The weirdest part is that Earl Morrall, the quarterback most tied to the Super Bowl III failure, became the guy who finally got to stomp around in the ashes. The game started beautifully for New York. In the first quarter, Woodall hit rookie tight end Rich Castor for a 15-yard touchdown. The Jets led 7-0. That's a great opening scene. Bad team, late season, no Joe, on the road, and suddenly the big bad Colts are on the ground. But then Baltimore did what good teams do. They didn't panic, they kept throwing. Johnny U started, but Earl Morrall entered late in the first quarter. Once Morrall got rolling, the whole game changed. Early in the second quarter, he found Eddie Hinton from 25 yards out. Tie game 7-7. Then the Jets punched back in, I'd say, the funniest way possible. Morrall, the haunted house from Super Bowl III, threw a pass that Larry Grantham took the other way for a 41-yard interception return. Touchdown. Pick 6. Jets 14, Colts 7. You know, Baltimore fans had to feel that in their teeth, right? Jets 14, Colts 7. You could almost hear the old Super Bowl film canisters rattling around in the press box. But Morrall didn't melt. That's the difference between a bad memory and a finished career. Late in the second quarter, he went right back to Hinton for a 7-yard TD. Tie game, 14-14 at halftime. At that point, the Jets are hanging around. They weren't dominating, not stealing it, but they were hanging around. And I've got to say that matters a little. A 4-9 team has no real reason to keep answering except pride. And the Jets still had pride. The third quarter gave Baltimore its first lead. Earl Morrall hit Jimmy Orr for an 18-yard touchdown. and the Colts went up 21-14. New York answered with a Jim Turner field goal from 25, so now it's 21-17. Then Turner hit again in the fourth, this time from 29 yards. Suddenly it's 21-20. 1 point, fourth quarter. A team with nothing to gain is annoying the future Super Bowl champion. That's football at its best. Not always beautiful. Sometimes it's just one team refusing to leave the bar. But the Colts had the bigger gun. Morrill hit Ray Perkins for a 41-yard touchdown, and that was the backbreaker, really. Baltimore led 28-20. Then the defense closed the door when Ted Hendricks recovered a fumble in the end zone. Now it's 35-20, and the scoreboard finally looked the way Baltimore probably felt the game should have looked all along. Final was Colts 35, Jets 20. The box score, not gonna lie, little bonkers. Morrill finished 18 for 33 for 348 yards. 18 completions for 348 yards. 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. That was a career-high passing yardage day for him. Remember, he won the NFL's MVP award in 1968. This wasn't in a random Lions game or a Dolphins game later. Here against the Jets, the team that lived rent-free in the worst corner of his football brain. That's the story. Earl Morrill didn't just play well. He got the last word in a regular season game nobody puts on the top shelf, but absolutely belongs in the Colts-Jets weird history cabinet. For New York, Woodall threw for 199 yards and 1 touchdown. Rich Kastler got the early score, and the run game didn't help. It really didn't help. Emerson Boozer was the leading rusher with 14 yards. It's not a typo. It's a cry for help. The Jets did get defensive points from Grantham, and Turner's kicking kept them alive into the fourth. But without Namath, without a ground game, and without enough answers late, they were trying to fight a grown man with a broom handle. For Baltimore, Eddie Hinton caught 5 passes for 79 yards and 2 scores. Ray Perkins only needed 1 big shot to change the fourth quarter. The Colts didn't run the ball much at all. They didn't need to. Sam Haverlack led them with 25 yards rushing. And that sounds fake, but it fits the day, right? Baltimore didn't win by leaning on the ground. They won because Morrill was dealing. Morrill burned the Jets. The backup quarterback from Baltimore's most infamous loss came off the bench and thrown 4 touchdown passes in a Colts win over the Jets. That's not revenge on the same scale. It's not really close. Super Bowl III it's carved in stone. But this was still a nice little exhale for the Colts. For the Jets, the season ended at 4-10. The record looked ugly, but it tells a clear story. They're still talented enough to scare good teams, but they're no longer the swaggering AFL champs. Namath's body was becoming the whole plot. Woodall gave them moments, and Weeb Eubank still had credibility. But the Jets were drifting away from their miracle peak. The 1968 Jets had changed the sport. The 1970 Jets were just trying to get home. The Colts moved into the playoffs at 11-2-1. In the divisional round, they blanked the Cincinnati Bengals 17-0. Then they beat the Oakland Raiders 27-17 for the AFC title, the Unitas hitting Ray Perkins for the final Baltimore touchdown. That sent the Colts to Super Bowl V against Dallas. And that game was a mess. Beautiful? No. Historic? Yeah. Turnovers everywhere. Chaos everywhere. Rookie kicker Jim O'Brien winning at 16-13 with 5 seconds left. The Colts are champions, but they were not a clean machine. They were more like an old pickup truck that somehow got you over the mountain while making 9 different death noises. That's why this Jets-Colts game matters. It's a regular season finale, but it sets at a hinge point. The Jets are on the far side of their great moment. The Colts are trying to bury theirs. Namath is missing. Morrill's throwing darts. Baltimore's headed for a championship. New York is headed into the long, awkward afterlife of being the team that once shocked the world. It's been 57 years. I don't know what year you're watching this in, but, well, it's been a while. Chapter 4644 isn't the most famous Colts-Jets game. It's an echo. It's really an echo of an echo. But for one Saturday in Baltimore, the echo sounded like Earl Morrill laughing. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Maybe, if you're weird.